Carl, what have you done?
Think anyone will notice? Mr. Carl Jackson.
Carl Jackson was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. After the sudden death of his mother at the age of 11, he moved between LA and Orlando, Florida, trying to find his way in life.
So I'm clearly a Carl Jackson fan.
Carl Jackson.
Carl Jackson.
Carl Jackson.
Although he was introduced to hard work, faith, and family values, as a struggling teen, he wandered down the path of least resistance, finding himself jailed twice. By the grace of God, he attended an evangelical church and found that there was a better way and accepted Jesus Christ as his Savior.
There's just no fake stuff about Carl Jackson.
Now, on the Salem Podcast Network, Carl has launched on a journey to help people of all races and backgrounds to discover facts of America's true past, as well as realize the benefits of utilizing their God-given gifts and talents, which far outweigh any benefit from a government subsidy or program.
It's dangerous out here. Let's roll, Carl.
Get going fast.
Redeemed, rehabilitated, and real entertaining. This is the Carl Jackson Podcast.
All right, welcome to the Carl Jackson Podcast. I'm glad that you could join me today. Listen, there's a lot in the news, but I want to do something a little different today. I want to break down one of the column that I read through from Julie Kelly of American Greatness. I'm a big fan of her work. You guys should be too. Go to amgreatness.com and check out every column that she writes concerning the January 6th Capitol riots, or what I call the mostly peaceful protests. But first, let me do this. Let me tell you what's in the news today, and then I'll go back and we'll start setting the table, if you will, with the things that I'll get into perhaps beyond Julie Kelly's article. All right, so one thing, U.S. officials say that Russia moves artillery and rocket launchers into firing positions. Okay, so I feel like we need to talk about this daily, but quickly. I don't want to spend too much time with Russia and the Ukraine possibly going into battle, despite the fact that I feel extremely sympathetic towards the people of Ukraine. I hate that they gave up their nuclear weapons. It's really frustrating. We promised them things that we did not live up to as Americans. But I do, Ukraine's fight isn't necessarily our fight. However, I will admit that it really looks bad the way that Biden is handling this. Listen, again, I'll just reiterate what I've already said multiple times. If we didn't want a conflict with Russia, or if we didn't want to see a conflict between Russia and Ukraine, Americans should have never selected Biden to be in the White House. Biden cut down the shut down the XL pipeline. He helped Putin open up the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, right? Just to reiterate that, Biden cut off the ability of oil companies, major oil companies, to frack and drill on U.S. lands. It's almost as if he's trying to tank our energy, our energy independence, which he has done essentially, and farmed it out to dictators around the world, like Putin. So listen, Putin is going to do, again, what Putin is going to do. I don't know if this is a propaganda campaign for Putin. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I can tell you that Putin has already won in my mind. He's exposed NATO for who they are. I mean, I feel like it's just completely worthless being a part of NATO, at least without a leader like Trump or someone that will hold them accountable in office. He's exposed the fecklessness of the Biden White House and the Biden administration in regards to foreign policy. Remember, even Barack Obama thought, and Barack Obama, Secretary of Defense, who was also George W. Bush's Secretary of Defense for some time, also thought that Biden made the wrong decisions when it came to foreign policy. We're talking about Barack Obama, who stunk in foreign policy. And so now we know and we understand why they said what they said about Biden. He completely stinks. So I don't want to pay too much attention to that, because I don't want you to lose sight of who's in the White House and the damage that he's causing in the White House, or from the White House, and the damage that he's causing to this nation. So Biden is underwater in all but 4 states. This, according to Civics. Let me just go through this, actually. So let me set the table. I forgot to set the table. Here's the topic menu for today. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, so let's set the table on the topic menu for today. Again, we're going to talk about the January 6th pipe bombs. What happened with that story? Where are the people? Where are the people involved in that? We haven't heard as much from that lately, so we'll talk about that. I want to talk about these the approval ratings of Biden because I think this needs to be on the forefront. But Biden is a very, very weak president. He's very vulnerable. I gave you some numbers yesterday, some internal polling that suggests that Biden is underwater literally with every aspect of his base. From blacks, Latinos, independents, moderates. He is underwater significantly, double digits, over 20 points in many of those cases. So it looks like the Democrats, if Republicans stay vigilant, if Republican activists, if you will, make sure that they get out to vote, make sure that they bring someone else to vote, make sure that you donate and or get involved in political campaigns, it is quite possible that the Democrats will experience a bloodbath. But that won't happen unless you remain active in the process. All right, but I want to go back. I want to go to this because yesterday we learned the devastating news that the filings from special counsel John Durham over the weekend that alleged that the 2016 Hillary campaign was working to establish a narrative linking the Trump campaign to a Russian bank in an alleged gambit to infiltrate Trump servers to that end, both while he was a candidate and while he was in the White House. I mean, just bombshell news. So we know the FBI knew about this. This is an indictment, in my opinion, not just on the Hillary campaign, not just on Jake Sullivan, who now works for the Biden administration, not just on Mark Elias, Clinton's attorney, formerly of Perkins Coie, not just on Michael Sussman, but this is an indictment on our DOJ and who the DOJ has become. Russia collusion hoax, the Ukraine hoax. Where's the DOJ? Where's the FBI in all of this stuff? This is very, very, very important, particularly as it pertains to what I want to speak to you about today. So I want to get into the polls. We'll get into the polls by the numbers. And then I want to go into this issue regarding the January 6th pipe bombs because it looks like these could be another FBI hoax, thanks to the investigation, thanks to the true journalism of Julie Kelly of American Greatness. We'll have to get her on the podcast, and we will get her on the podcast soon. She does phenomenal work at AM Greatness. So anyway, first, let me break down these polls to you just real quickly. So this, according to civics.com, Joe Biden, job approval. This is amongst registered voters. Do you approve or disapprove of the way Joe Biden is handling his job as president? I want you to notice the age groups. All right, so from age 18 to 34. All right, actually, let me give you these numbers first, and then we'll give you the breakdown. So the total number of people that responded, of those that responded, I should say 34% of people approve of Biden. Those must be ardent supporters. They're not leaving. Those are left-wing nut jobs. Those are the AOCs of the world. They're not going anywhere. 57% disapprove. Another 10% or 9%, either approve nor disapprove, meaning they're scared to say anything to pollsters or they're flat out not going to say anything to pollsters, in my opinion. All right, now here are the subgroups from ages 18 to 34. 18 to 34. Now, who do the Democrats typically have a lock on? They have a lock on college kids. Well, they don't have a lock on college kids. And people, just starting out in their careers or so on, they typically seem to have a lock on the earlier age groups. They don't this time. So from ages 18 to 34, 26% approve, 59% disapprove. This obviously does not bode well at all for the Democrat Party. This is not good news for Biden. And let me make this emphatically clear, because we talk about Biden, and the reason why I mentioned Biden's name is because it's always easier to identify with some type of figurehead of a movement and to attach those policies to him. Even though I believe, as many of you do, that Biden probably isn't running much of anything in the White House. Some Democratic strategists, some far left-wing nut jobs inside of the White House are likely telling Biden what to do. There's no doubt that he's taking He's taking advice from radical groups, the Bernie Sanders crowd, the AOC crowds, and all this kind of stuff. There's no doubt about it. We all know about the Great Reset. We all know that he wants to be, or we've heard that he wants to be the next FDR. Unfortunately, he's going to be the next Jimmy Carter, or unfortunate for him, he's going to be the next Jimmy Carter, perhaps even worse. And I believe he will be worse if he lives long enough to endure his first term, and I do believe he will. But it's a sad state of affairs that I even have to mention that. But the guy is just tanking everywhere. Again, 18 to 34, 26% approve, 59% disapprove, 26 to 34. I guess they wanted their free college. They didn't get it. And now they're getting to experience what's happening in the economy with rising food prices, rising energy prices, rising rent prices. Biden happens to be in control of all of this. He can't blame Trump. This is happening under his watch. This guy inherited vaccines. This guy inherited a recovering economy. All he had to do, and I heard President Trump say it, former President Trump say it, basically all this guy had to do was go on vacation, go to the beach somewhere, and just be quiet and steal credit for Trump's success. But he's so moronic, he didn't even have, and his administration, they didn't even have the sense to do that and to try to ease this great reset on the rest of us. So thank God this is all falling apart. I talked to you yesterday about the awakening, the great awakening of the working class. And thanks to Biden's policies, even the young people and the Democrat policies. All right. It isn't just Biden. What we're witnessing, what we're living through, these rising food prices, these rising energy prices, soaring housing prices, soaring rent prices. For all of you who voted for Biden, no, this is what happens when you vote for the Democrat Party as it exists today. This isn't just a Biden thing, but it's easier to attach this stuff to him because we got to kick his behind out of office in 2024, and we got to kick the Nancy Pelosi, we got to give her a demotion in November of 2022. So I certainly look forward to that. And given these numbers, it looks like the booty kicking is a-coming. From ages 35 to 49, 33% approve of Biden, 56% disapprove of Biden and his policies. From ages 50 to 64, 37% approve, 56% disapprove of Biden and his policies. Among people that are age 65 and up, you have a 40% who approve and then 55% that disapprove. Now, let me tell you why this is devastating as well. This is devastating as well because these are the Medicare recipients. They want free health care, or they want subsidies, right? I shouldn't say free health, but they want their subsidies. When you poll this bad amongst the older people and the younger people that you're normally able to scare into voting for you, you're in bad shape. Education, non-college graduate, the working class. So you have 33% that approve. And then those have to be ardent Biden supporters that just don't want to admit that they voted for the wrong guy. And then you have 57% that disapprove. You have 10% that approve nor disapprove. And notice the gap. I mean, notice the plus minus. You're talking about 33% among the non-college graduates. I mean, that's a 24% difference, a 24-point difference. 33% approve, 57% disapprove. These gaps for Biden are just growing larger and larger, seemingly by the day. Now, education, college graduate. Now, we know that college graduates are brainwashed, right? Unfortunately, that's the state of affairs in the United States. A lot of smart people go to college to get dumber inside of the United States nowadays. Instead of science, technology, engineering, math, we're pumping out a lot of social justice warriors, some in great vocations. But unfortunately, social justice warriors, that the political correctness lens, the social justice lens, gets in the way of them being able to think clearly. And we're seeing a lot of that from college graduates. But even amongst college graduates that were perhaps expecting their their college loans to be nullified, approval amongst them, only 35%. These are people that they've been brainwashing for quite some time. Disapproval or approval only 35%. Disapproval 57%. Among the educated postgraduate, 39% approve, 51% disapprove. It looks as though this is the closest that Biden you're talking about a 12-point difference amongst the postgraduate, and these are the best numbers he seems to have on this poll. This is not looking good. So if you're wondering why Democrats all of a sudden are abandoning these mask mandates, it's because they're reading these polls and they're saying, oh, crap, we got to get off of this boat. Let's abandon this senile old man. Gender, as far as sex. I hate saying gender because gender is fluid. I can't stand that. Those are terms that the left use. They intentionally, a woman intentionally devised the word gender so that sex could be fluid. And we, as conservatives, we fall for this. So biological sex, male, 29% approve of Biden. And those are all people that are considering transgender surgery. And then as far as the disapproval number, 64% disapprove of Biden. So the men disapprove of having a weakling in the White House. As far as females are concerned, females want to feel safe. They want to feel secure. Apparently, things aren't going well for Biden there as well. Amongst females, you have 39% that approve of Biden. You have 50% that disapprove of Biden. You have another 11% that either approve nor disapprove of Biden. And then you have the Democrat Party. 72% of Democrats approve. Now, you may say, Carl, wow, that is a large number. Well, no, it isn't. When 13% of your base are now disapprove and another 15% say, we neither approve nor disapprove, it just means they're not going to be excited to show up to the polls. There's going to be a serious enthusiasm gap for Democrats because of Biden. So this is what this poll is telling you, all right? So 72% of Democrats approve, 13% disapprove. If you don't have your base, it's really it's virtually impossible, right? It's virtually impossible to win an election unless somehow Biden is able to garner more support from Republicans and from Republicans or good Lord, what's the word that I'm searching for, Gabe? Independents. All right, that isn't happening. So this is huge news. This is devastating for Biden. And then you go to you got 2% of Republicans that approve of Biden. These are people that must be invested in Russian energy, Chinese solar panels or something like that. Republicans that have absolutely no sense whatsoever. 96% of Republicans disapprove. I mean, this is even disappointing. Sometimes Republicans always trying to play the nice guy, trying to be politically correct. They want to give the benefit of the doubt to even a Democratic president. Not this time around. It's not looking good. Independents. Oh my Lord, this is insane. Independents approve. 22% approve. 22% approve. 67% disapprove. Now, elections are often won, right? I don't know why it is, but we have pretty much even splits between voting Democrats, registered voting Democrats, registered voting Republicans. If you look nationwide, it is the weirdest thing. It's the craziest thing to me. That's why our elections are so close today. But the deciders often are the independents. You're not going far with numbers like this. 22% approve, 67% disapprove. Insane. White people, 27% of white people approve of Biden. 65% disapprove of Biden. That's insane. As far as black people are concerned, 63% approve, 19% disapprove. Well, you say, Carl, that is a huge percentage of the black population. Not when you consider that the Democrat Party almost automatically gets 90% of the black vote every time, and Republicans have to work their tails off to get a few percentage points in order to try and win a national election. Amongst the Latino population, this is close. 43% approve and 45% disapprove. But what's not detailed in this particular poll is the fact that Latinos approved of Biden approximately, if I recall correctly, and I'm sure some of you will correct me. I know I don't have the numbers exactly, but Latinos are leaving the Democrat Party in droves. I believe these numbers are down 20 plus percentage points when it comes to the Latino population. Other races that are considered, whatever other means, 39% of others approve, 51% disapprove of Biden. When it comes to Alabama, the state. Anyway, listen, I can go on and on. We'll stop there because then it gets state by state. Now I want to get to the story about January 6th. This story, this column by Julie Kelly of AM Greatness is devastating. And I want you to put everything into perspective. This is a sad state of affairs because we can no longer trust our institutions. We no longer trust our institutions. The left aren't there yet, right? They still uplift. They still exalt our institutions, FBI, CIA, the DOJ in general. But Republicans and conservatives, independents, anyone that's been paying attention, anyone that's been reading, realize that we have a crisis with some of these bureaucratic institutions. And this is where we'll go now concerning the pipe bomb story. I think it's another FBI hoax. Hat tip Julie Kelly of American Greatness. Again, yesterday we found out the bombshell news that Durham, the independent, if you will, special counsel, has alleged that the Clinton campaign hired techs to infiltrate President Trump's servers while he was a candidate and while he was in the White House. Bombshell news. This is much bigger than Watergate. Crickets from our DOJ. Crickets from Christopher Wray. I want to remind you of the Gretchen Whitmer story. We haven't been hearing much about that, have we? The Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping case. I'll get into that a little bit. But let's talk about this January 6th pipe bomb story. You guys remember that. On January 6th or the night before, there were pipe bombs found near the DNC, near the RNC. You heard about that story lately? There's probably a reason why you have not heard about this story, at least not in detail. So, two events happened simultaneously on 1/6. Julie Kelly outlines in her column on AM Greatness. Make sure you go and find it. So in the 15-minute time span before the joint session of Congress, she explained, the joint session of Congress convened at 1 p.m., and these times are going to be very, very, very important as we go through this column, as we break it down. So in the 15-minute time span before the joint session of Congress convened at 1 p.m., on January 6th, two incidents that set the stage for the day's ensuing chaos happened simultaneously. What happened? First, there was a man, and remember these names, a man named Ryan Samsel. Are you familiar with the man Ryan Samsel? Are you familiar with that name? You're probably not. But Ryan Samsel took some directions from a gentleman who I'm sure many of you are familiar with. This gentleman is Ray Epps. Ray Epps, as you know, we've seen video of him all across the internet. On some of the news outlets that we watch, of Ray Epps trying to incite the crowd on 1/6 to go into the Capitol building, even the day before, make sure they go into the Capitol building, so on. And then you had a crowd of people screaming, "Fed, Fed, 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 Fed," calling him out. This guy is allegedly a part of the Oath Keepers. And so that's who Ray Epps is. Ray Epps encouraged this guy, Ryan Samsel, to overrun a thin line of police and the metal racks that they, set up in front of the Capitol steps, essentially breaching the Capitol grounds. That was about 12:50 p.m. when Ryan Samsel, finally breached the Capitol grounds at the behest or at the encouragement of Ray Epps, all right? So Samsel was subsequently charged and has been in jail for more than a year, being held as a political prisoner, unless I'm not sure what violence he may have perpetrated. So let me be careful there. Maybe there's some violence he perpetrated that I'm unaware of. But as far as I know, he was just the first to break into the facility or head into the facility, at least that they charged. Never mind the fact that on another side of the building, people were openly, freely being ushered in to the building by Capitol Police. That's a story for another day, I guess. Samsel was again charged, sentenced to, or is now incarcerated. He's been in there for a year. So joining Samsel in entering the Capitol building were members of the Proud Boys and still unknown members of the FBI. Some informants. We know some informants were there now, right? They've been willing, or we found that out. They're willing to admit that now. The second event that took place. Have you guys heard of Carlin Younger? Have you ever heard of a woman by the name of Carlin Younger? This is a very important name, particularly as it pertains to this story, the January 6th pipe bombs that were discovered. This is the second event to take place on 1/6. This is a very important event because around the same time as there was a breach in the Capitol, this woman, Carlin Younger, who just happened to be walking to a laundry facility, Julie Kelly notes, near the RNC headquarters, happened to look down, and she happened to see what she believed was a pipe bomb. And it was, somehow set between a couple of dumpsters. So Carlin Younger, very important. She's the one that discovered. She's the one that discovered a pipe bomb between a dumpster and a fence that was right next to the RNC. So to the Republican National Committee building. All right, Carlin Younger, she discovers the pipe bomb. RNC, right? That's where we are. That's who Carlin Younger is. So she's big in this, obviously, because she's the one that found the pipe bomb. As a result, two events occurred. Panic in the nation began to ensue, or as a result of those two events, the Ryan Samsel infiltrating, if you will, the Capitol building, Carlin Younger finding the pipe bomb at the RNC building. Obviously, you hear this, you hear of, oh my God, people breaking into the Capitol. If you could take yourself back to that day, and watch the videos that we all watched on television and the live camera feed that many of us watch on television, we're like, what are you doing? I can remember thinking, you're going to make Trump look bad. You're going to make Republicans look bad. All this stuff that all of us thought that day. But I also knew, and I did think this, it's always going to be a few bad actors, possibly in the crowd. But I also thought, how many of them are Black Lives Matter? How many of them are Antifa? I didn't think, how many of them are FBI? But sadly, we've arrived at that point. But you can take yourself back to that day. We don't pretend as if we don't know all this information. And things just felt crazy. Things felt chaotic. It was like, oh my God, is this Capitol under siege? How far are these people going to go? So you had the breaking in of the Capitol building, okay? And you had this woman, Carlin Younger, who found the first pipe bomb at the RNC, all right? Two amazing events. The Capitol Police reportedly discovered another explosive outside the DNC headquarters a short time later. Okay, now, here's where things start getting a little weird. It's amazing, the timeline. We're talking about 12:50. We're talking about 12:50 p.m. A short time later, Congress convened at 1 p.m. You have Samsel busting in with the encouragement of Ray Epps, if you will, and I shouldn't even say busting in, entering the Capitol building at 12:50 p.m. All right, and then all of a sudden, the New York Times. I want you to notice when we think back to this, just how convenient this story becomes. And sadly, we used to trust the people in the FBI. We used to trust the laymen. I got to be honest, I don't trust anyone anymore. When it comes to these institutions, I just don't. And I think it is important for all Americans to have a healthy dose of skepticism when we get any news. Sadly, I don't feel great in saying this, but I think it's important to have a healthy dose of skepticism about anything that comes out from the FBI, the DOJ, sadly, even the CIA. So here comes the New York Times. So the device that was found, and the New York Times broke the story pretty much immediately. And they say the device that was found at the RNC was a pipe bomb that was successfully destroyed by a bomb squad, according to an official for the RNC. Now, one of the takeaways just from this paragraph is it was the New York Times that broke it. Well, Carl, they are the New York Times. They are the granddaddy of them all. Okay. It's still pretty convenient that a left-wing rag is the one that breaks the story, given that in Washington, D.C., obviously there was a lot of conservative reporters. It was conservatives there for the most part, right? I've heard numbers as high as 1 million. You're telling me conservative reporters weren't aware of this initially. It just seems very convenient. But the New York Times goes on to explain, and the reporters, by the way, were Maggie Haberman, Michael Schmidt, Katie Benner. They wrote the package at the DNC has yet to be identified, according to a top Democrat briefed on the matter who was not authorized to speak publicly about it. The story went viral at 1:53 p.m. So now we're looking at 1 p.m. Congress convenes. 12:50 p.m. You have Ryan Samsel, who is encouraged by Ray Epps, entering the Capitol legally or illegally. Obviously, he's spending time in jail, so they believe illegally. The people that arrested him believe illegally. The story goes viral at 1:53 p.m., just 1 hour after the initial breach of the Capitol. The Capitol Police issued a statement, and here's what they said. They said the USCP hazardous materials response team determined that both devices were, in fact, hazardous and could cause great harm to public safety. Stephen Sun, the Capitol Police chief, wrote on January 7th, the day he resigned from the force, the devices were disabled and turned over to the FBI for further investigation and analysis. What's next? Well, there's a $50,000 reward offered. Why? Well, during a press conference a few days later, Michael Sherwin, he's the acting U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia, told reporters that law enforcement agencies, both including the ATF and the FBI, were collaborating to find those suspects who set the pipe bombs. We have got to get those suspects who set the pipe bombs. These men are dangerous. These are Muslim terrorist type, attackers. These guys could be extremely dangerous. Who knows where else they're going to lay a pipe bomb, right? And obviously I'm being facetious, but that's what they were promulgating. I mean, this is insane. This is crazy. We all felt that. Oh my God, pipe bombs? Are you kidding me? Who would do that? Some terrorist of some sort. That's what we all were thinking. The bombers would be brought to justice. This, according to Michael Sherwin. And then promised. It wasn't Michael Sherman who promised that. He offered that information, but it was Stephen D. Antonio, the newly appointed head of the D.C. FBI field office. This name is going to be very important. I'll bring it together in a sec. So Stephen D. Antonio, the newly appointed head of the D.C. FBI, said these people have to be brought to justice. And, of course, he would be right. Of course, we would want these people brought to justice because they possibly tried to blow up the RNC and the DNC. So these were equal opportunity terrorists, right? They weren't mad at the RNC alone necessarily. They weren't mad at the DNC alone necessarily. They were equal opportunity terrorists, or this person was an equal opportunity terrorist. When you stop and think about that, let's go on. Every rock was being unturned, Stephen D. Antonio said, to apprehend that suspect or suspects. The FBI offered a $50,000 reward. A $50,000. That could really change someone's life, especially a poor person in the D.C. area. That could really change someone's life. While the FBI rounded up trespassers, hundreds of trespassers, some that are still being held as political prisoners, the trail of the pipe bomber went cold. We did see this grainy footage. You guys may remember this grainy footage of this pipe bomber, this alleged suspect in a hoodie. And that pipe bomb story, or that video, was allegedly recorded the night before, January 5th, the night before. All right. And that was the time the agency determined that the bombs had been planted. And in March, D. Antonio asked for the public's assistance in tracking down this bomber. Right, we got to find him. $50,000 is on the line. It's yours if you can tell us who this person is. And then D. Antonio, because I don't know how to pronounce his name, D' Antuono. He begins to talk tough on a video message. He says, anyone who showed an interest in making explosives prior to January 5th, 2021, or possess galvanized pipe, wire, and, I quote, multiple kitchen timers should be turned in to the FBI, even if the person was a relative or friend. So even if this person was a relative or friend, you had to perform your duty as an American citizen. You needed to turn this person in. So surely someone was going to be compelled, because they're an American citizen, to fulfill their duty to turn this potential terrorist in and collect 50 G's. But it's been a year. It's been a year. Nothing. It's been over a year now. Still nothing. The story gets a little weirder. Politico recently reported that Kamala Harris, VP Harris, was inside the DNC headquarters at the same time the explosive sat outside the building. Harris, who left the Capitol around 11:30 a.m. On January 6th after attending an intelligence briefing, chose not to participate as a U.S. Senator in the certification of her own historical election. ¿Por qué? She was evacuated out of the DNC headquarters by the Secret Service at 1:14 p.m. Several minutes after Capitol Police inspected the building after the RNC bomb was found. But there are two conclusions that we need to draw here. The shocking revelation means one of two things. One, the Secret Service, in a security sweep of the DNC building and the exterior grounds prior to VP Harris's arrival, missed what the FBI insists was a viable explosive. Did the FBI really miss that? You mean to tell me our FBI, probably the most resourced law enforcement agency in the entire world, they missed this pipe bomb? Wow. Doesn't leave a lot of confidence, or leave me with a lot of confidence in our FBI. So, they either missed what the FBI insists, again, was a viable explosive device, and that scenario seems unlikely. Anyone with a modicum of common sense thinking about this, that just seems crazy. I hope these people were fired, right? They're protecting the vice president of the United States, allegedly. These people should be fired. So either they missed this pipe bomb while they were in panic in doing due diligence to sweep the surrounding areas to make sure everything was A-okay, or the FBI is lying. And we don't want to think about this, but the truth of the matter is what we've seen from these elites, what we've seen from these bureaucracies, these institutions that we once trusted, we learned we can no longer trust. Look at how they're treating former Mayor Rudy Giuliani. You may disagree with his policies, but the way they've treated people, anyone associated and affiliated with the Trump campaign that they could destroy, look at how they've been treated. You may not like them. You don't have to like them, but all you have to wonder, or all you have to do, is put yourself in their shoes and say, well, wait a minute. If Republicans were in office and treated Democrats this way, wouldn't I be upset? You should be upset. These institutions belong to all of us. They were built to serve all of us, not to be some political hacks. But unfortunately, that's what they've turned into. And sadly, I think we all can surmise, or we can all at least, you may not believe as I do. Let me put it this way. You may not believe as I do. But I think that it is highly unlikely that the FBI missed the pipe bomb at the DNC. I think it's quite possible that the FBI is lying. We've seen what Comey has done. Russia collusion hoax, Ukraine hoax. Now we know that, in my opinion, as this special counsel, John Durham, goes through and finds out that the Clinton campaign hired techs to infiltrate Trump servers, both as a candidate and in the White House. This is insane what we're living through. And when you just consider the FBI's history, why would you trust them? Now, let's circle back to this lady, Carlin Younger. You guys remember Carlin Younger. She's famous, or she should be famous. Her name isn't brought up in the media yet, but it should be. She's the one that discovered the pipe bomb, the initial pipe bomb near the RNC, remember? So this woman, she found the pipe bomb. Now, Carlin Younger is described in news reports as a resident of D.C. or an employee. Why wasn't this? Or an employee of the Department of Commerce. Okay. So Younger's resume and background. Let me give you some of her resume and background. So on January 6th, she took a midday walk to the laundromat and she found the first pipe bomb. You know, going to wash her clothes, whatever. She finds a pipe bomb. That happens to all of us. Younger was a project manager for a company called First Net Authority. This is a public-private partnership between AT&T and first responders that prioritize emergency communications during an attack or disaster. Okay, got it? So standing board members for First Net include the Attorney General and Secretary of Homeland Security, several federal agencies, including, you guessed it, the Department of Justice. A few weeks before January 6th, FirstNet received its largest ever commitment from law enforcement agency. It was a $92 million contract for FirstNet services. That agency was the FBI. Is it just a coincidence? Is it just a coincidence? Here's what Younger had to say. Now, she was in a press conference, I believe, let me just read what Julie Kelly says here. Now, perhaps one could write off as coincidence Younger's ties to a government-connected agency that just received a massive investment from the FBI. But in a media interview, thank you, here's what Younger said that tipped her hand. She said, and I quote, "You're on that edge of, I don't want to bother anybody. I want to make sure this is real, right?" This is what she says. This is what Younger told a Wisconsin television station. This is on January 18th of 2021, just 12 days later after she discovered the first pipe bomb near the RNC building. And she goes on to say, quote, "You don't want to go down as the person who evacuates a city block for a hoax, but at the same time, this isn't a place you would put a hoax." It was just enough of a gut instinct. Just enough of a gut instinct that says to her, this isn't the place you would put a hoax. Of course this is where you would perpetrate a hoax. If you're the FBI, if you're that hates Trump, if you're the DNC that hates Trump, you want to make sure that he shuts up about the election. You want to make sure that he never has a chance to run for political office again. Of course, this is the place where you put a hoax. Where's Younger now? Glad you asked. Younger has since left FirstNet and co-founded a security and technology startup firm. Her work with the firm, funded by the FBI, deserves at least a few eyebrows. So now this lady is working with a firm that's funded by the FBI. What about Stephen D'Antino? You guys remember him? Was he the AG? I want to get these titles correct for you. But anyway, I believe he was the new AG, if I'm not mistaken, that came into town in Washington, D.C., that said he was going to bring justice. Yeah, he was the newly appointed head of the D.C. FBI, so the new head of the DCI field office. All right. Now, several weeks before January 6th, here's what you need to know. Let's connect the dots here. Julie Kelly does a great job of doing this. He was moved from the Detroit FBI field office. So now this guy is in D.C. He was just removed from or moved, not removed, but he moved from the Detroit FBI field office. You guys remember what was going on there, right? Dan Antonio, or D'Antino, was promoted on August or October 13th. But what happened before? It was the conspiracy, the kidnapping conspiracy of Gretchen Whitmer that this guy overlooked. You know, that story that we're now finding out, the story of Gretchen Whitmer and this kidnapping story, where there were more FBI informants involved in the setup of this than there were citizens, civilians. Yeah, that's Stephen D. Antono, or whatever his name is. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I just don't know how to pronounce it. So that was 1 week. The FBI announced Antono's promotion on October 13, 2020. That was 1 week after his office arrested several men that were conspiring to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Julie Kelly writes, the arrest made national headlines right before Election Day, with Democrats from Whitmer to Joe Biden accusing Donald Trump of inciting right-wing militiamen to abduct and kill one of his political foes. And this story blew up in the media, you may recall, right before the elections, right before the November elections. But now the government's case is falling apart. And I'd like to know where these people are. It's insane. At least 3 FBI agents and a lead informant, defense attorneys, are making a compelling argument of FBI entrapment regarding the Michigan case because 3 FBI informants have done some bad things. So they're making an entrapment case against the FBI for the agency's use of at least a dozen FBI undercover agents and informants that were involved in the Whitmer plot. As head of the Detroit FBI office at the time, D'Antono owns the crumbling Whitmer kidnapping scheme, Julie Kelly writes. So the question is obvious. Does he own? And we don't know how many informants were there at the Capitol riots, at the Capitol on January 6th. You guys may recall Ted Cruz asking, I can't recall if it was an FBI agent, CIA, I can't recall, but Ted Cruz asking whether or not, it must have been an FBI informant actually, asking an FBI informant agent whether or not there were, or an FBI agent, whether or not there were informants at the Capitol on January 6th. She declined to answer. Guys, this smells like another hoax. Then you got Christopher Wray. Christopher Wray is the head of the FBI. Nothing but a political hack. Nothing but a political hack. He's only served and seemingly only served and worked to advance Democratic narratives, in my opinion. His agency, according to Kelly, has yet to produce any investigative report about the pipe bombs or official confirmation of how the devices were detonated. So a year later, this would have been a huge deal, right? If pipe bombs had gone off, if people were killed inside of those buildings or severely injured, God forbid, this would have been major news. You don't want anything like this to ever happen again. Why did it go cold? Why has it gone cold? Why has this story gone cold? Why has there been no confirmation of how the devices were detonated? Obviously, our mind goes, if you're anyone with a modicum of common sense, your mind goes back to Russia, your mind goes back to Ukraine, and sadly, rightfully so. So anyone trying to convince you that our institutions are worthy of trust, they're just wrong. I'm sorry. Guys, we are living in a dangerous time. We are living in a dangerous time in American history. We see these little wannabe dictators like Justin Trudeau in Canada. We see the Biden administration, this guy that claimed to be a moderate and is turning out to be worse than or more left-wing than Bernie Sanders could have ever dreamed of. These people that get in bed, Biden is so corrupt, he gets in bed with China. His son literally gets in bed with China and Ukraine and Russia. And these people control our institutions. And many of these young people graduating from college or whatever, pursuing careers in the DOJ, they go in, they're brainwashed, and they just follow orders because they think people like you and I are evil. Just because we vote Republican, or we're homophobic, xenophobic, all of these names, all of these words they learn in college to call Republicans in order to make themselves feel more moral. Meanwhile, they are destroying our institutions. They are destroying Americans like you and I. They are destroying the trust the citizens have in these government institutions that are supposed to be nonpartisan, that are supposed to be just strictly American and doing their jobs. Guys, I'm telling you, not only do we need to pray, but we need to make sure that we give conservative fighters the election in November 2022, and we better demand that they clean out these institutions. The FBI, the DOJ in general, needs to be cleaned out. Christopher Wray needs to go. These institutions need to be cleaned out. That's all I have to say about this. But anyway, I hope you'll read the article on January 6 pipe bombs look like another FBI hoax from Julie Kelly. And again, she's done fantastic work. And if anything, I hope that you've become a little more skeptical of our agencies today. And let me tell you this. There's nothing wrong with being skeptical of big government, whether it's the politicians, whether it's the institutions, and these bureaucracies that exist in our nation's capital. You should always be skeptical of big government. It's the only way that we're going to remain free. Make sure you please subscribe on YouTube, on Rumble. And when you go to YouTube, make sure you click the bell to get the notifications. But subscribe to this channel on YouTube, Rumble, Google Play, Spotify, wherever podcasts are found. Make sure you subscribe and follow us. I really appreciate you. Really appreciate you being in the listening audience. Go to my Facebook page, Carl Jackson Radio. Check that out. Twitter, @Carl Jackson Show. Parler, @Carl Jackson Show. Also my website, carljacksonshow.com. All right, guys. Again, until next time, don't grow weary doing good, and God bless you.